Imagine maxing out all your credit cards and then giving yourself money to pay off that debt. Sounds ridiculous, right? If any of us tried that, we'd go bankrupt in a few months. But here's the strange part. The United States government is doing exactly that. It borrows money, then buys its own debt through its central bank. On paper, it looks like it's paying itself back, but in reality, it's the biggest financial trick in history. And right now, the global economy stands on top of this illusion. So the real question isn't how clever this system is. The real question is, how much longer can this illusion last? A government bond is basically a debt note. The Treasury is saying, give me money now and I'll pay you back later with interest. These bonds are considered the safest investment in the world because behind them stands the full faith and credit of the US government. And for over 2 centuries, that promise has been enough. America kept borrowing and running deficits, but no one really worried because everyone believed the same thing. The US always pays its debts. This system goes all the way back to the country's early years. After the Revolutionary War, young America was drowning in debt. The first Treasury Secretary, Alexander Hamilton, proposed issuing new bonds to pay off the old ones. The goal was simple, to build trust, and it worked. The US proved it could honor its debt. Investors started lending again, but that move set the nation on a path. Borrow, repay, issue new debt. And America has been in that cycle ever since. Then in 1913, the Federal Reserve was created. Its purpose was to stabilize the system, but over time, it became the government's biggest partner in managing debt. When World War II began, the US needed massive amounts of money. The Fed stepped in and said, I'll buy the bonds if needed. That guaranteed there would always be a buyer for government debt. And with that, the government could borrow as much as it wanted. Then came 1971. President Nixon ended the gold standard. From that moment on, the dollar was backed not by gold, but by trust. The system became one built entirely on paper and belief. The dollar's value now depends on people's faith in it. Here's how the system works today. The government spends more than it collects in taxes. To fill that gap, it issues bonds. Investors, countries, and banks buy those bonds. But when demand slows, the Fed steps in again. The Fed doesn't print money, it just adds numbers to a computer. And that's how new money is created. It then uses that money to buy government bonds. The government borrows, the Fed buys. It's a loop. That's exactly what happened during the 2008 crisis. And it happened again during the pandemic, only this time on a $1 trillion scale. The government didn't print money, it funded itself out of thin air. And the winners of this game? They're easy to spot. Politicians get to spend money without raising taxes. Banks and investors are kept alive with fresh cash. Foreign governments still see US bonds as a safe bet. But the loser is always the same, the people. Because the hidden cost of this system is inflation. Every time new money is created, your money loses value. That's why groceries cost more. Your savings shrink and your salary never feels enough. It's like a silent tax that never stops collecting. Today, US debt has passed $30 trillion, and major buyers like China and Japan are cutting back. That means the US relies more and more on its own central bank, which means more money creation and more inflation. But this isn't just America's story. History tells us the same thing again and again. Britain built an empire on debt until confidence vanished and the pound collapsed. France financed wars with debt in the 1700s and ended up with a revolution. History is clear. Debt builds empires, but when trust runs out, everything falls apart. The US still stands strong because the dollar is still the world's reserve currency. Oil is sold in dollars, trade is done in dollars, and central banks hold dollars as reserves. But the cracks are showing. BRICS nations are experimenting with alternatives. Central banks are buying gold, and the end of the dollar is no longer a whisper, it's a serious discussion. If the world stops trusting US bonds, the system could unravel fast. Why should you care? Because this system affects your life directly. Your savings, your salary, your loans, your grocery bills, they all depend on this cycle. Every new dollar created makes yours worth a little less. That's why inflation feels like a thief, because it is one. The rich get richer, and the working class keeps losing ground. This entire system stands on one thing, trust. People still believe the dollar is strong, but no illusion lasts forever. In the 1920s, hyperinflation destroyed Germany overnight. In the 1970s, America faced fuel shortages and chaos. And today we're seeing the same signs again. Rising prices, housing bubbles, fragile markets. The danger isn't just inflation. It's what happens when confidence breaks. Because when that happens, it's not Washington that pays the price. It's you. That's why understanding this bond illusion matters. Because this isn't just about money, it's about power. The government pays its debt with money it creates, but the cost always falls on the public. True financial awareness begins when you see through this illusion. That government debt isn't free, that inflation is a hidden tax, and that the system's only real foundation is belief. Because history has shown us over and over again, every empire built on debt eventually collapses under its own weight. If this gave you a new perspective, subscribe, because all the answers are hidden in history, and I'll show you where to look.